Okay, are we on? Yeah. Good. So, hi everyone. Sorry for the lateness of this. We had a bit of a miscommunication. So we're trying to do the webinar from the hotel here. I'm going to look at, well, if I've got time, a couple of games from my 1992 match against Anatoly Karpov. It was the semi-final of the World Championship candidates. So I think we're going to switch over in a minute. You'll see slightly less of me. And do I get rid of this?
Oh no,
I can do that actually.
Yeah.
How do I?
Let's see. Oh, sure.
I can remove the notation, can't I?
Let's see. You're not gonna need the notation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, not yet. Okay.
All right.
Okay, that's all right. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Let's just confirm that they can see. Oh, where'd it go? Just a minute here.
Are we doing all right? Can you hear me? All right, I can't see the comments now. Yeah, all right. Okay. Okay, so this is what we're going to look at is game 4 of the match. It was a 10-game match, and I started off with a defeat. In game 1, I was black and played the Budapest Gambit, something that I call a condom opening, to be used once and to be thrown away thereafter. Then second game, I didn't really get anywhere. The third game, actually, I obtained a decisive advantage, but I failed to cash in. Could be slightly sharper contrast. I don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, so anyway, at this point I was still behind in the match, and this is where I equalized. So let me get the moves. So I opened with my traditional e4, and Karpov repeated the Karo Khan. And here I played the advanced variation, and this is the short variation, which is a really good line, actually, more or less the main line of the opening nowadays. And yeah, these were sort of early days of this quiet line with knight f3 and bishop e2. So here we go, c5, castles, and c3. So I was just supporting this central pawn. I think nowadays they tend to play in a much more dynamic way. This is more like an advanced variation of the French, but with black's bishop outside of the pawn chain. So he took, which at least makes my development a little bit easier, and a3. So this is an expansion planned on the queen side. Now Karpov went in a very direct way with bishop here, and there is a threat, as you can see, to my d pawn. but I defended it indirectly with this move. The point of this first key tactical moments in the game are, can black take this pawn on d4? Well, he can, but it's not really recommended. So let's have a look at, let's say, knight takes d4 here. I take back, takes, knight takes, and here, if d takes e4, I play queen a4 check, and this is a very important move. And in fact, that's extremely difficult for him to cope with this check. He obviously cannot interpose because I just whip that off and play rook d1, winning a piece. And if he drops his knight back, I've got rook d1 anyway, and I've got fantastic play for the pawn. And I'll just give you a small example what can happen. Here, b5, and if he's careless enough to take, here is the tactic of the morning, and bishop b5 wins the queen. So this is an illustration of what can go wrong. I saw queen a4 check was good. In fact, black's best move is king e7 after that, but it's clearly not what he wants to do. And then if rook e1, I have the better game. I have obviously very good development. So yeah, maybe I should say something about what I've been doing. Yeah, I should say. So I've been here in Mexico City and recording it's an approximately 15-hour course on chess tactics, but it's chess tactics actually based from my own career. I have a very long career and thousands and thousands of games, thousands of examples, and the course is in 7 chapters, different themes, different ideas, and hopefully it will be out. If not next month, then I think in May at the latest. But we're hoping to get it out as soon as possible. So obviously you'll get more details on that later. So knight takes d4, if we go back, that is not a particularly good move. Karpov played queen b6, and I went bishop b2. It's possible to take now. It's maybe even better than it's better than the other variation. And here I've got 94, and after this, actually, the position is not that clear. I can play rook d1. It's probably slightly better for white, but not such a big deal. So that was an option for him. Instead, he went bishop e7, and I went rook e1, and with each it goes rook d8 with some preparation to take. Again, he's always looking to take my pawn, but now I defend it again indirectly. So I've had sort of several indirect defenses, not complete defenses to d4, but Here, if he played a5. If he whips it off, then clearly I can take this way, and now my rook comes into the game. And white is certainly better here because I have two bishops. I'm threatening bishop takes knight, and this discovery with his knight move will not bring him anything straight off. So he played a5, actually trying to lure me into playing b5. I'll just explain what's the difference. The difference is actually quite substantial, because if we go for the same sort of variation like last time, he can now bring his bishop to this very active square and bring up threats against f2. So this way he keeps his knight, well-placed knight, in the center of the board for as long as possible. So I avoided that. I just whipped off his bishop, and here he regained the pawn. But we've got an imbalance now in the position. I like my center. I've got you know, that sort of well protected, and I have also the advantage of two bishops. So this position's probably a bit favorable for white. I go rook b1, putting the rook opposite the queen. So this is setting up all sorts of ideas. There's a question here. Why do you switch the two knights carrow from your advance? Which one is objectively better? Well, look, they can both be played. The problem with this line, this short variation, it's now so heavily analyzed that I like to play things which are not quite as fashionable. I actually started playing this variation because we were going off in new directions, but now as this variation, this sideline has become the main line of the Caro-Kann. So you know, this is a good variation, but I probably haven't done all the work necessary to keep up with the latest ideas. Yeah, I am keeping an eye. I'm talking, but I'm keeping an eye on the chats. Obviously, I can't answer everybody's questions, but if I see something of special interest, I'll try and cover it. So Queen a5, he's got some ideas with Bishop c3. And in fact, I should avoid that. I can play a move like Queen here. And this is probably a very nice position for white. Black's coordination is not that great. I played a bit inaccurately here. I went h4, not the best move. And here. And he probably should, at some point, play bishop c3. I think that would have been the best move. And after this, we actually have a draw. I can play in other ways, of course, but just get back here. So he probably should do that because he certainly doesn't stand better here. Go to rook d7, rook f4, threatening or intending to take. And now I advanced. Drop this back. I think Karpov, he also didn't find the correct way to play in this middle game. I went bishop e4 here, and part of the idea was to advance my d pawn, d5. He now, which is actually forces him to give up material. Yeah, I think he should just play this. He should play a sort of Petrosian sacrifice as the exchange. And here, at least, he's got good pieces. It's an exchange for a pawn. So, you know, white is probably slightly better, but I think he's doing fine. Instead, he didn't want to sacrifice this, so he moved his knight back, and this is probably an error. I brought the rook over, which is a good move, and now queen c1, and suddenly again I'm starting to get in threats of bringing my queen over to h6, if I can draw that diagonal, and this could be very, very dangerous indeed. So having seen these last two moves, Karpov decided to put his knight back on f5. And here we have the first, let me say, really critical moment of the game. And in fact, I believe objectively I missed a forced win at this point. If you look at the annotations at the time, if you have a look at the annotations on ChessBase and so on, none of them mention these possibilities. It actually just shows how dependent we have become on analysis engines. I was thinking about the following move, not this one, but bishop takes f5 in the game. But I failed to calculate the finish. Rook g3, I now suddenly get threats along this diagonal. e6 is a big threat, and I expected him to play queen d5 here. After queen d5, I can now play e6. This is where I think my powers of calculation let me down. Takes and d5. So I start to open up this diagonal, and queen h6, and you know this is surprisingly difficult to stop. For instance, if bishop f6, knight g5 can be played. Now, clearly, he cannot take that because of mate. So he has to drop his queen back here. I now give a check on this square and play bishop a3. And that's actually quite a vicious move. It's a really nasty pin. And he's reduced to playing a move like rook d6. After rook d6, I can go rook e3. And this is just the most awful trouble for him, because he's so tied up. And if now knight e5, I can play a move like f4. And it's funny because this looks like a bad move at first, but you can see why it doesn't work. Black is pinned all over the place. If he tries, for example, here, rook takes rook, check, the king moves somewhere, let's say here, knight g4 check, and now king g3. And he can't play queen takes rook because the queen is pinned, and he can't take my knight because of mate here, and he can't take my rook because of queen takes f7 checkmate, all because of the pin on with the bishop. So this actually would have led to a decisive attack, but I had to foresee that this double pawn sacrifice was extremely strong, and I think I didn't find it. I underestimated how powerful that was. I should just point out, obviously, if he takes, then rook g6 check, or even maybe rook g6 check immediately, and queen h6. And this is really ferocious, very, very difficult for him to deal with this. If bishop f8, these are variations I'm making up now, knight g5 check, and this is winning. So he can't defend. He can't defend here. So I missed a big opportunity. So we had this position. I now, yeah, and I have another move which is better than what I did. Probably d5. I should probably, you know, if I can't see the winning continuation, I should probably go d5. And at least this will force him to give up some material like this. And it's probably slightly better for white, but not such a big deal. I played, I think, a bit inaccurately. Queen c7. This move is inaccurate as well. He should play his queen to a2 here. The reason for that is after queen c7, I can play the same variation, and now it's even more difficult for him to stop e6 coming, because his queen is misplaced. So I missed another opportunity. I think we were getting a bit short of time. It was a bit of a tense game. Karpov was in time trouble in practically, you know, almost every game in this match. It was something that brought him down. I think he was not used to playing this sort of position. He wasn't, you know, he was sort of a Caro-Kann player, but this was a new variation, and it's much more like a French defense, which was not really his forte. I think it's why he switched to playing e5 later on in the match. I now play queen b2. This is a bad move. He took here and sacrificed, and yeah, that's it. Here he's got plenty of play for the exchange, and I think it should be a draw with correct play. There was another variation, if I can remember it. No, I can't remember it. So takes here. Yeah, bishop here. This is maybe. I mean, this is okay. Knight takes e5, and you see he's got 2 pawns for the exchange. I should probably play bishop e2, which gives me a slight advantage because he can't stop queen takes b7. That would be more accurate than what I played. I still think this should be a draw because all the pawns will be on the same side of the board. So he should exchange off the queens, and I believe it should be a draw with correct play. Although obviously I've got an extra rook, so that is something in my favor. So I took here. Anyway, queen c2, which was fine. Brought this back. I played that was the sort of nervous time trouble move, really. Drop this back, and now here. And actually, I think if he just plays a simple move like knight f3, this type of position is just drawn. I mean, there's basically nothing in there. Black has no chances to win a position like that, and white's chances are really minimal. I think it should just be a draw. But I don't know why he didn't do that, because it was such a natural move to play. I bet most of the people who are following this this broadcast would play knight takes f3, but Karpov, he lost the thread here. These were time trouble moves. I now move my bishop out of the way, and you'll see what happens over the next few moves. He's basically trying to reach the time control at move 40, but without making any weaknesses. But he didn't find how to do this. Well, king g7 is kind of normal. I, of course, improved the position of my king with this. I've got a white square bishop, so I should put my pawns on the dark squares. And I also give my king this square on g2, which is the ideal square. Trying to bring this piece into the center, but now rook b7, and this is well placed. Sorry about the noise here. There's a bit of cleaning going on in the background, some scrubbing away. So Jacob Surat says I would play knight takes f3 even if it were illegal. Well, yeah. So that you're obviously from the Inakiev school of chess. That's making illegal knight moves. Okay, this started to, after this move, now he has to be a little bit careful because I've got my first very big threat, which is queen takes g6 check. And here, his next move was pretty awful, actually. I think almost anything should be all right. I mean, even a move like queen c6, if he just gets the queens off here, it seems highly unlikely I'll be able to win a position like this, because he should be able to erect a blockade. It's very, very difficult for me to break through. He went queen h5, and this was a very serious error. Is it true that Kasparov predicted before this match that Nigel will be a challenger? No. Well, actually, Kasparov made various predictions during the course of this cycle. Right at the beginning of the cycle, he thought that Boris Gelfand would be his most likely challenger. After I beat Karpov and then had to play Timon, Kasparov predicted that I would beat Timon, and he was right. Here, I have the move rook d7, which just disturbs his coordination, and he cannot anymore maintain his knight on d4, because if he plays e5, I have bishop c4 threatening rook takes f7 check. So he's forced to make some very bad move here, knight f5, and obviously I capture. Now the position is probably objectively lost for black. And after the next move that he played, it is 100% loss. Here, he probably needs to make a move like queen f5. I mean, it's disgusting. I can just exchange queens there, and then he has to take this way, and this must be a winning position. So this is probably his best at this stage. He played queen e5, and at this moment I exchange queens, and this was after in fact, the game was adjourned. We used to have adjournments back in those days. And when I finished this, my wife said to me, and she's not a chess player at all, why didn't you play rook takes f7 check? You know, I mean, she probably has a rating of about 1,000. And I said, you know, like, what are you talking about? And then actually, rook takes f7 check just wins on the spot. So you should always listen to your wife. That's my advice to you, because after king here, I have bishop b3, and with a threat of mate. And the following variation is more or less forced here. Takes check, king here, queen takes bishop, and queen h8 mate. So you know, that would have been good. That would have been good indeed. So why did you fail against Fischer on the internet games? Maybe because I didn't play Fischer on the internet. Right. Okay. Glad I've dealt with that one. All right. I missed a pretty trivial win, which shows I'm a patzer. I took. This is still technically winning, but this is actually rather difficult for me to break the. Yeah, I said I took that back years and years and years ago, Kuldeep, and nobody pays any attention to retractions. So it's actually very tiresome to hear this story again and again. I just hope it's dead and buried. So here he protects things, and you will see over the next few moves, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. I'm sort of shuffling around a bit. I was trying to find a plan. Yeah, now I play king f3, intending g4. And this more or less compelled him to play f5. The problem is his knight and bishop coordinate very, very well together, and they make it difficult for me to penetrate with my king. If I can get my king into his position here, he's going to lose. But it's not that straightforward. And it required a little bit of sophistication to maneuver around. Okay, now I start to go with my king, but my king still cannot enter very easily. And with this move, he begins to get some threats with knight h5. And also, if I go in, he can kick me away with knight g4 check. So it's not that simple to break through. I play check, just repeated, and now bishop d5. So he needs to be careful here. Actually, one of the things that I want to do is put my bishop back on f3. So he went here, and now I sacrificed because getting my king into the position is more important than anything. So I'll just give you a little variation. If takes, I can now play check and rook g8, and it doesn't matter where his king goes. Bishop f7, and this breaks his coordination here. And the moment that that happens, he goes down. So after king e5, he very importantly put his bishop on this diagonal. This makes the most difficulties for me. And here, actually, it's now a very important idea that in order to win this, I have to sacrifice one pawn. In fact, in the game, I sacrifice both my remaining pawns to break his coordination. It's a bit counterintuitive. Normally, you would think you would preserve your pawns very, very carefully in a position like this. But it's more important that I break his position. So I play bishop f3, threatening to take his knight. So now he has no real choice other than to come in. And I go rook d7. And there is a very important tactical idea. The bizarre thing about this position is, how do I hit that? Can you just hold, can you put your finger on that one a second? Yeah. Oh, alt. Sorry, he wants to keep his bishop on this diagonal. He didn't play bishop h8, it's a terrible move. He played bishop c3, but it's a very long diagonal. But the bizarre thing is he actually doesn't have enough squares on the diagonal. If that would be an infinite diagonal, he would be doing all right. I think I'm going to take some of the questions at the end because we're only on for an hour, aren't we? And I've got to get to the end of the game, and I'll take a few. I'll see if I can answer a few of these questions then. The point of my maneuver is that I want to play my king to f6, but I eventually force his bishop onto a bad square, like now, so that if he comes here, I've got rook g2, and my rook will enter on the actually, maybe I play rook c2 first. On the g file. If he goes bishop here, I know I have king f6 anyway. So rook g2 is basically the idea, which is why at this moment why he played bishop c5. d1. I now actually forced his hand by retreating, giving up the second pawn. So it looks like I've played this like, maybe to some of you, it looks like I've played it like a complete idiot, because all I've done in this position since we started this endgame is lose 2 pawns. But I have the key move now, king f6, threatening checkmate in one move. So he's now in trouble. So he stops the mate, but my rook comes in to d7. And all the time, this is breaking his coordination. So here he has to keep the bishop on the diagonal to stop mate. And I went bishop c6. And what my idea is, I'll just basically show you my, the principal idea is I drive his king into the corner and I give checkmate. So, for instance, if he plays here, check, I can take here. And the next move will be bishop d5. And I've got him in a mating net over there, and basically his king is caught, and bishop d5 check and rook f8 is coming, or bishop d5 check and rook h5 mate. He can only stop it temporarily with a move like this, and then mate comes very quickly. So that's the key thing, that bishop c6 is actually to stop his king from escaping. He now tries a few moves to drive my king away. But as you can see, I've removed some important pawns. And this is a very nice move, putting his knight into some trouble. He has to be careful where he puts this. If he puts it back on g3, well, I can even play here again, and we're actually going to get the same variations where I'm delivering checkmate. So he tries to escape, and after rook d5 check, king comes forward, bishop c7, rook d7, and that was the end of the game. Bishop c6 is coming, and he loses all coordination. Yeah, bishop here, this one, and after king f8, I have rook d8 check winning. So actually, instead of rook d7, I also have rook g5 and bishop d5. That's actually quite a pretty way of finishing the game, because after some move like this, I can play king d7 and rook g8 mate. So my pieces coordinate very well together once I manage to infiltrate. So that's it. I was going to show a second game, but I think we're going to run out of time. So I'll try and deal with some questions. So let me see. Should we?
Yeah, I'll switch to the webcam, and you can.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh.
Okay. Jolly good. Oh yeah, lots of questions here. Okay, excuse me. So how do I move this up? Just there it is. So yeah, there was a question from Rishi. Nigel, based on your experience, I want to know how a master able to maneuver and convert such positions so easily in comparison to lower rated players. Buy the course. Buy the course. It won't make you a grandmaster overnight, but you know, or what do they say? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Yeah, there's actually going to be plenty of good material in the course, so you'll be able to keep yourself entertained, hopefully, for a few weeks with this stuff. Yeah, wow, what a that's Omkar. Yeah, what a complex struggle. Yeah, and yeah, it was actually the end game. I did not find that easy, by the way. That was a difficult end game for me. I learned a lot in the process of you know, studying it and playing it, how to coordinate with the rook and the bishop and to break through, because it's not that easy to get past this defense. So let's move up. Yeah, there's a comment, Germans are obsolete. You bet they are. They were a torture. So do you prefer games as they are? No, the Germans were just awful. Michael Tal hated them. I mean, as he said to me, he said they disturb your sleep, and they certainly did. And they ruined your evening. You know, you'd finish your game and you'd go off and you know, you'd have to take your set with you to dinner, and you'd be analyzing for hours and going on, and then you just wouldn't sleep properly. So yeah, it was interesting actually with the adjournment analysis. I had an official second there, Luboš Kovalek, and he was pretty useless actually in analyzing adjournments. I wasn't very good at all. And a friend there who'd come to watch the match, Michael Steen, who, you know, I mean, he just come along. I wasn't employing him or anything. And Michael had the experience of helping Viktor Korchnoi in some World Championship matches. And so he was very used to analyzing away these positions. And I remember I was pretty tired. You know, I had 6 hours of chess and I needed to rest. I just couldn't look at the position immediately. And at some point, you know, Michael had gone away on his own, and he came up with some analysis for this adjournment, and it wasn't right. It wasn't exactly right. His analysis was flawed, but the key thing was he actually suggested the right idea. He just hadn't executed it properly, and this basically was the spark, the key that enabled me to find the way to. You know, it's very odd that I'm winning the game by luring him to capture my pawns. I mean, that is counterintuitive. So yeah, Michael was particularly helpful for me in that game. So yeah, it's very difficult. Yes, angry King March against Timon was fantastic. Yeah, it wasn't. I have played other games. You know, I'll just tell you, if you buy this course, and I hope a lot of you will, You will not see that game. I've played a huge number of games and an awful lot of nice games as well. And I don't want to be known for having played one game only with a King March. There's a huge amount of good material there. So yeah, there's a question. Oh yeah, that's iChess.net. Who are they?
Team.
Someone on the team. How did you approach this match with Karpov? Did you do anything different with your prep? Not fundamentally different. My basic approach to playing matches and in general against opponents is to find things that are uncomfortable for my opponent. So I am prepared to move out of my comfort zone in order to get them into unfamiliar territory. That's basically what I did. So one of the things I used in this match was my main defense with black was the Queen's Gambit accepted. And the reason I played that was because it was just about the only respectable opening which Karpov had not had in a World Championship match, against Kasparov or against Korchnoi. So, I mean, just the Queen's Gambit didn't appear at all. So, Queen's Gambit accepted. Lots and lots and lots of Queen's Gambit declines. So, yeah, my idea was to basically get something that he hadn't really analyzed that much. And don't forget also, Karpov traditionally, historically, was an E4 player. And he correctly moved to playing D4 later on in his life, because I think he's a much more natural D4 player. And Kasparov thinks the same. So, right, let's go on. Why do you think there are less sharp Najdorf battles these days? That's Andy Sjoda or whatever. Well, I think there is plenty of Najdorf battles. It's just that E4, E5 has become very, very popular at the highest level. It's never been unpopular, but I think it's just one of those things that, the Berlin and the Marshall attack in particular, these sort of openings have given black, very good resources, and it's actually very difficult for white to find any sort of advantage there. Najdorf, it's for guys like MVL who analyze incessantly. But you have to be prepared for a lot of computer analysis these days. I remember seeing Fabiano Caruana, for instance, beating Hikaru Nakamura in the Najdorf, and you can lose these games almost without playing a move, and that is a little bit unattractive. Have we finished, or can we go on a little bit more?
It's up to you. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go on. Yeah, a little bit. I started a bit late. I'll see what questions we have. I'll take a couple more questions and see how to stop feeling drowsy playing long-term games. Cocaine, amphetamines, I recommend. Not endorsed by iChess, by the way. This is my personal thing. Yeah, I don't think iChess want the police coming around to investigate them. Yeah, amphetamines. No, you can't do that. Try coffee. Coffee's very good. And it's not illegal. Yeah. The Woolloomooloo. Yeah, that's a nice. I guess you're Australian with such a name. Yeah. Used to have a little koala bear, Woolloomooloo, in our house. Anyway. Yeah, your favorite player. Yeah, I've got lots of favorite players, actually. I have admiration for all the world champions. Some I like more than others. I can't say I'm a big Steinitz fan, although he had some interesting ideas. In my dotage, I'm starting to appreciate Emanuel Lasker much more, and I think any guy who could be world champion for 27 years couldn't have been such a patzer. He had a slightly narrow repertoire, which is something which was less appealing for me, but now as a very experienced player, I appreciate his games more. But guys I like, Tal, Capablanca, Alyechin, Smyslov. I was never really a Botvinnik fan because he was a miserable old communist. And also, if you read my columns in New in Chess, you'll know what I have to say about him. And all these other guys, Spassky. I didn't like Petrosyan very much because I played him once in a simul, and he was not very gracious in defeat. In fact, he just sort of shoved all the pieces into the middle of the board, refused to shake my hand, and just walked off. And I thought that is no way for a former world champion to behave to, a 13-year-old boy. So that was pretty miserable. And the other guys, Karpov, I'm a big fan of Karpov, actually, because he was, although I really started playing chess because of Bobby Fischer. Fischer was a big disappointment to me as a player. He wins the world championship and then he stops playing. I mean, that's miserable. Okay, Susan Polgar did more or less the same thing. Later on, she won the women's world championship and then hardly played at all. But I like my champions to play chess. That's what we're there for. So yeah, and the more recent ones, yeah, Magnus. I haven't mentioned Magnus. Huge admiration for him. He's a brilliant player. I wouldn't like to say he's the greatest player of all time. You should ask me this in another 10 years, and I'll give you my opinion. And there are others, obviously. Kramnik, 5 times world champion, Vichy Anand. I mean, he is a legend and still going strong, as we're still playing very good chess. I hope he doesn't play in the over 50s, because I'm hoping to become the over 50s world champion. And if Vichy plays in that, I'm going to be in trouble. So let me see. So Jacob Surratt, I own both volumes of GM Short's best games on DVDs from ChessBase. And I'll just tell you something on that, by the way, Jacob. There is very little overlap, almost no overlap between the two DVDs I did for ChessBase a few years ago and these 15 hours on tactics from my own games, which I've done here. And that was a very conscious choice. I didn't, you know, I want to give value. I want to give something which maybe you haven't seen previously. So let me go on. What about Chess 960? Can be played. Nothing wrong with Chess 960. Yeah, Kasparov. Yeah, he was strong. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Kasparov has given me a lot of torture. What do you think of the Dutch Stonewall? I'll just say one word to that. E5. E5. Look at the square E5. Now, I've played the Stonewall several times in my career, and it's not a very good opening. That is the sad truth of the matter. It may be good at club chess because there are not that many strategic ideas, but playing positions with limited strategic ideas have their drawbacks. Yeah, what do you think about Vichy? I mentioned Vichy. Vichy's great.
Yeah, I think his questions are from like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, sorry. Right, okay, so I'll try and come on to the... did you really say that strategy in chess doesn't matter? It's all about tactics. I don't think I said exactly that. I believe that you cannot play well strategically unless you can calculate properly. The two things go hand in hand. So, you know, if you're improving your position and connecting your foot and doing things in a very harmonious way, and then you miss some tactic where you lose a pawn or you lose a piece, it's all irrelevant. So tactics are really the basis of chess. And I'm not just telling you that because I'm trying to sell you something now, but that is my firm belief. William Palmer is he's trying a bit of flattery here. You're the best, Nigel. Thanks for everything you're doing for chess. Great. That's it. Yeah, flattery will get you everywhere. So keep it up. So what else do we have?
I think that's about it.
That's about it. Yeah. Oh, do you think Max Erber was the weakest world champion? You don't read my columns in New in Chess. You should read them because a lot of these things appear in New in Chess. I actually told a story about this. It was I was at the Erber Memorial Tournament in Amsterdam many years ago, I think in the late 1980s. And I was sat at a table with Mevrouw Erber and other members of the family. So, you know, with his widow, and she was a very elderly lady. And I don't know what happened, but I was there, and just by way of making conversation, I just said the most stupid, idiotic thing imaginable. I said that, in my opinion, Max Erber was the weakest world champion. I mean, it's just an appalling thing to say to his widow. And I mean, this could have been really embarrassing, but she burst out laughing. and she said, yes, Max always used to say the same thing himself. So I managed to escape from my appalling diplomatic faux pas, and that was it. So, I'll be a bit more careful in future. Yeah, I also spoke about this. I was attending the 80th birthday. It was the 80th birthday of Vasily Smyslov, and it was at the Moscow Central Chess Club. And they had these celebrations, and of course, most of the people there were Russian, but they asked me to say a few words, which were duly translated. And Vasily is there, and so on. And I said, I started giving this speech, and I said, in my opinion, Smyslov was a much better player than Botvinnik. And then I had Rochal, the Alexander Rochal, a Russian journalist, who's sort of standing on my foot or prodding me at the time. And I was wondering what the hell he was doing. And then he whispered, he said, that's Botvinnik's widow in front of you. So I have a habit of making these terrible mistakes. But anyway, I think I got away with that one as well, but I don't always. Yeah, I'll stick with chess. Yeah, but keep away from diplomacy. Yeah, that's why I've never gone into diplomacy. But I think people like it from me because I say what I think, and most of the time that's good. Occasionally it gets me into trouble, and I think I just have to live with those times where it's uncomfortable. So thank you very much. I'm going to say goodbye. I've learned a new word today. That is called a webinar. I've never heard of this term before. I'm a dinosaur from the Jurassic Age. And it was a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed having a look at this game too. All the best.